you both come from sort of a background in theatre, so I was wondering, how did that feed into the film? I noticed the dialogue in particular is very naturalistic, and there are a lot of sort of theatrical cadences in the people's voices. Particularly in one scene, you're in Father Sheridan's office, and you've got a great rhythm in your voice. Does this come from theatrical tradition, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think certainly Jimmy Gralton had a lot of public speaking experience that I don't have, other than saying other people's words on stage. So it definitely fed in, I think, and it was something I was kind of a bit conscious of, because the Leitrim accent's quite thick and also different to how it is today, I assume, back then, you know. But Jimmy had travelled widely and left Leitrim at a very young age, so he wouldn't have had an extremely thick brogue, and also just needing to be heard. You know, you have to be thank you very much. You have to be clearer in diction, you know. And I've noticed it myself when I moved to London, because I had a really thick Dublin accent, but I just got really tired of repeating myself when what I was saying was not interesting in the first place. So I've had to clear up my own diction. Yeah, big time. Yeah, but also Jim Norton playing Sheridan has a very rich theatrical voice, and as a priest giving sermons, that came across, and I think it fits. But Rebecca was saying in Cannes, we sold the film to an American distributor who had been interested in Loach's movies for ages, but often found them impenetrable because they're largely, you know, working class and sometimes sometimes Scottish, which I find sometimes tough. But they were like, the reason we really went for this one was because of what you just pointed out. We could understand the diction was clear, and it was
important. For international distribution, which is a much bigger thing these days.
It was vital, and at the same time, you don't want to lose the reality of it. So I hope we got the balance right.
It is hard sometimes, even watching TV now. People are mumbling more and more and more and more. It's actually becoming kind of frustrating even watching TV sometimes, that even in an accent that's not, I mean, even English accent or American, that's normally easy to understand, I'm finding myself looking at the TV going, I have no idea what they just said.
There's a bit of a trend, isn't there? Yeah,
there is a bit of a trend to just mumble.
And there was now that mumblecore movie genre almost. Not so long ago.
Did you find that your theatrical experience was a benefit then? Do you think it makes us stand out?
Yeah, well, I suppose first of all we had dance training for a couple of months, and then when we arrived in Leitrim, we all, as a cast, the older cast, not the young ones, we did a lot of research together as a group. Which felt like a rehearsal period that you have for theatre, and we got to know each other really, really well, and also, nobody has their own trailers. On a Ken Loach film, everybody hangs out with each other. There's none of this hiding away. Like if you're supposed to be a community, then you behave like a community, which is a lot closer to. Yeah, absolutely it does, and and that mirrors also the experience that I've had in theatre, where people, you can hang out in your dressing room, but a lot of the time you hang out in the green room if you want to have a conversation with people, or when you're rehearsing, you do get to know people quite well over the 4 or 5 weeks. So and also, every night on stage is different. You can bring something fresh. You're free to move around a little bit more, and that it's like that on a Ken Loach film as well. You don't hit your marks. You can try new things. It's a lot looser.
How do you relate this sort of rebellious impulse in the central characters here to sort of modern day figures such as Edward Snowden and so on? Do you think those kind of characters still exist?
Big time, yeah. There are Jimmy Graltons everywhere, and I wish I had just finished reading The Grapes of Wrath, and I wish I had learned the Tom Joad speech at the end, you know, and he's saying, wherever there is trouble, I'm paraphrasing now, wherever there's trouble, I'll be there. Basically saying that this kind of spirit exists everywhere, especially where there is oppression, you know. It's the one to speak up against it. So I think throughout all ages and places there are Jimmy Graltons.
Yeah. I was thinking maybe today the sort of Jimmy Graltons are a lot more involved in things like feminism, like Laurie Penny and figures like that.
There's also a lot of, because of social media now, you can very, very quickly have someone who's that kind of a character upload something onto the internet, and then the whole world gets to see it really, really fast.
Exactly.
So you see them cropping up all the time, like that girl in the Ukraine, that really beautiful girl, and everybody at the square. I mean, that went around the world so quickly because there was something about her that was very charming and interesting to listen to, and she was very articulate, and she had a cause, you know, so I think they are cropping up all the time, I think, on the internet. People, you know, on Facebook or Twitter, you know, repost. So you do see them all the time, I think, characters like that.
And I think Jimmy Gralton set up similar halls in America when he went back, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right, yeah, and they were teaching communist literature and stuff like that. And James Connolly used to do the same. There was a thing James Connolly did with young budding politicians his protégés, where he'd give them the platform, and the rest of them would sit and they'd be taking notes and kind of you know, teaching each other the art of public speaking and the art of debate. But they'd get daily newspapers, and he would basically teach them how to approach a headline with a Marxist, from a Marxist viewpoint, you know, how to dissect this the media, basically, that you're spoon-fed, how to really get underneath the skin of it, you know.
Yeah, it's important skill set.
Yeah, big time. I mean, you're looking at the Chomsky and Pilchers of the world, you know, and it's very important that people are deprived of that skill set.
So that's one of the things about this film as well. It's very, very socially engaged in an age when a lot of films tend to shy away from that kind of thing. I think that's one of Ken Loach's biggest sort of...
Well, those two guys, Ken and Paul, aren't afraid to say how they feel about things. They're not afraid, I guess, to be outspoken about their views. It's important to speak up for what, even if people come at you with their own point of view. I think they actually get a kick out of that sort of debate about things, and life is more interesting if we're all debating with each other about things, because they're important things, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's hard to be around those guys and not to sort of be influenced a little bit by that.
Yeah,
you know,
big time. And just encouraging a healthy discourse.
Yeah.
That very often there aren't any opportunities for. But it's great that they've managed to use film as a medium for that.
Yeah.
In a sense, Ken Loach is today's Jimmy Gralton.
Well, absolutely.
Totally, yeah. Big time. Yeah.
I could see a lot of parallels.
Okay, what kind of research or preparation did you do for this kind of, I hesitate to call it a period drama, it has more depth than that, but did you examine the period in any particular way?
Yeah, we all read a book by Liz Curtis called The Cause of Ireland. And Ken just asked, I think it's just a really good, easy to read history of the time, and so that we were all up to date on the politics and even just preceding sort of the 20s through the Civil War, all that, you know. So we read it right up until, I mean, I don't know when does that book finish, but it's
at the Civil War. I think
it's a really good read, and then we did a couple of weeks research when we all came together in Leitrim, where we went to Donal O'Driscoll, gave us a couple of lectures. We got to see a documentary that Jimmy's real family made back in the 1980s that was never aired on RTE. Really interesting to hear them talk about him in their very thick Leitrim accents as well, which were almost incomprehensible. And then we got to see his real cottage and meet his surviving family. So yeah, we were very immersed in it by the time. And the dance as well, we learned how to dance together for a couple of months. So by the time we started filming, we were already a community, the gang of us, and we got to meet the young gang as well, and that was great because they did bring a whole different element of
they had a lot of
energy
in the film.
Oh yeah, they had in real life too. They were great bunch.
Could you tell me about the rehearsals or filming of the sort of central dance scene in the hall?
That was great. We rehearsed that a lot, and then on the day brought into the hall with a real band playing live music.
No, he means the central dance.
Oh, sorry, ours. I thought that for me the central dance is the gang.
There are two.
The central dance
That's
was
the sex scenes.
Our dance was we rehearsed that quite intensively without quite knowing what it was on the page. I don't think we ever saw the script for that.
Until it was over, I don't think we did. So we didn't know, for the couple of months, we didn't know why we were learning foxtrot and waltz and all those slower dances. And when we got there, you know, Ken and Paul came in to watch us dancing together one day, all these slow dances, and then they sort of told us a little bit more about the scene and how we were going to sort of enter the scene, what was the sort of approach into, and how they end up dancing together. And then we sort of took that into account. And by then we were so familiar with each other dancing that we were able to make a lot of suggestions about sort of moves that felt comfortable with us.
Yeah, and it was kind of a case of us, I think, being over-prepared. So you had loads of moves to show them. And then once we entered into the space, you know, they very quickly could ascertain what worked well, what didn't on camera.
Moving
So
the space up and down,
so
don't go around.
Yeah, it was quite fluid. It was like, let's keep that bit is great, that really works, and then cut that bit.
And then they just ended up filming for hours that day. I mean, we filmed that for about 8 hours from all different sorts of sides. So we just... And I think eventually we sort of just forgot they were there, really, because it was very quiet. It was a very close set that day.
Yeah.
And we just danced, and then every time we finished, we'd say, okay, that didn't quite work, we'll try this. You know, so it became sort of just them on the periphery, me and Barry just talking and dancing together for like 8 hours.
Yeah. But it felt like, you know, it was hard work in that you're constantly thinking of the steps and you don't want to mess them up. But then you have to put the performance on top of that, and here's two people with what you see in the film and that story that they share. But I remember afterwards, Paul Laverty, the writer, was so enthusiastic on the bus on the way back. Like, he was glowing, and he was
because they didn't know if it was going to work. You know, they've never. Ken and Paul haven't really done that kind of a scene before.
But Paul made the point. He was just saying that it was like everything coming together. He was like two actors on the top of their game. We had beautiful lighting. Camera work was exquisite, and the sound guy was like on his knees trying to get everything underneath the costume. He was just beaming. He knew it was a real magical moment, you know.
Yeah, it's a great scene.
People are always pointing that one out, aren't they?
There's sort of a rise in sort of a lot of Irish actors and Irish sort of new films coming out at the moment. What do you think of this? Is this kind of a movement going on, or?
Do you mean Irish actors abroad or in Ireland?
Just in terms of, like, in this film, you've got Andrew Scott, or you've got Michael Fassbender abroad, or a lot of new films like what Richard did and so on.
Yeah. I mean, what excites me is when I see women, because for a long time we didn't see Irish women in film. It was always Irish men with international actresses doing accents. What's really nice for me is when I see actresses sort of getting an opportunity. It makes me feel a lot more positive about.
Yeah, I also think it's an inevitability. I mean, Western culture's become so homogenized. The Irish, English, Welsh, the Americans. There's very little between any of us.
That's true. Everything's on the internet now. Anyway.
Yeah, we're not distinctly natives anymore. You know.
Yeah.
So it's much more fluid thing than it was in the past.
Absolutely. I suppose we'll leave it there.
Thanks.
It's very nice talking to you.
You too.
Thanks very much. Nice one.
Good to see you.
Thanks, man.